In the stillness of this very moment, an unseen doorway opens, inviting you into a deeper dimension of being. Spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle gently guides the listener to reconnect with something that has always been there, yet often overlooked: the inner body. Closing your eyes may help at first, not as a rule, but as a way to soften the distractions of the outer world. From this place of quiet, attention shifts inward, not through the mind, but through direct perception. Can you feel life in your hands? The subtle tingling in your arms, your feet, your chest. There is a field of energy that flows through all things, silent yet vibrant, invisible yet fully present. As awareness rests upon that sensation, the experience deepens. It is not imagination, it is embodiment from within. Each cell awakens not with sight, but with the light of consciousness itself. This field has no form, no boundary. As you sink into it, an unfathomable space emerges, connecting what is tangible with what is eternal. Even if you feel only a faint tingling, that is enough. That is the doorway. When you open your eyes, do not sever that connection. The inner body remains, a living bridge between what you appear to be and who you truly are. Don't lose sight of it. Let it become your anchor. Return to it often. In moments of noise, distraction, or doubt, this presence within is your silent guide. Always here, always now. There is a kind of waiting that does not arise from desire or impatience, but from a quiet, awakened presence. Eckhart Tolle refers to this as esoteric waiting, distinct from the ordinary kind that drains us, the kind that fixates on the future and rejects the now. Jesus, in his profound wisdom, used parables to point toward this sacred state of waiting. It is not passive, it is alive with alertness, an inner stillness that remains open to the possibility that something may unfold at any moment. In such a state, there is no room for wandering thoughts, no memories of the past, no anticipation of the future. Only a total presence remains, a clarity without effort. The entire body becomes involved, as if each cell is listening for something unspoken. The familiar self, with its stories, fears, and expectations, begins to dissolve, yet nothing of true value is lost. On the contrary, without ego, one becomes more fully oneself than ever before. Jesus said it simply: be like the servant waiting for the master's return. The servant doesn't know when the master will arrive, so he stays alert, calm, and ready. If he sleeps, he will miss the arrival. In another parable, 5 women forget to bring oil for their lamps. They symbolize unconsciousness, the absence of presence. The other 5, who bring oil, represent awareness that stays lit and attentive. These teachings do not speak of the end of the physical world, but of the end of psychological time. They invite us to rise above the egoic mind and awaken into a new state of being, the eternal present. This inner watchfulness, nurtured moment by moment, requires no strain, only sincerity. It is as though consciousness itself were awaiting the touch of the sacred. Even the smallest moment of true presence holds transformative power. When you embody this state, the ordinary becomes luminous. In such moments, you are not waiting for life. You are life itself, unfolding, aware, and complete. There are moments when, without warning, the mind dissolves, and all that remains is a vibrant silence, a stillness that cannot be grasped by thought or captured by language. Eckhart Tolle refers to these flashes as glimpses of presence, Satori. They don't last long, yet they carry the flavor of eternity. They often occur when one is alone, surrounded by nature, the vastness of a starlit sky, the gentle murmur of a stream, the birdsong at dusk. In such moments, if the mind doesn't intervene, something beyond form reveals itself, a sacredness that defies explanation, yet is deeply felt, immense, subtle, essential. But that dimension cannot be seen if we remain trapped in thought, lost in memory or worry. To perceive it, one must become fully present, letting go, even briefly, of the weight of past and future. It is not effort, it is surrender, openness. And when that happens, beauty is no longer something seen, it is something known, felt, lived. Perhaps without realizing, one has entered a brief state of no mind, a pause between thoughts where a doorway opens. The mind cannot create beauty. Only pure awareness can perceive it. Yet often, that doorway closes quickly. Thought rushes in, and what was sacred becomes a memory. One says, "How beautiful," but the words are already an echo. The experience is gone. Those who can remain longer in that space of formless presence access a deeper dimension of being. In that depth, beauty is not just observed, it is touched within. Many lie disconnected from this truth. They look at a flower and name it, but do not see it. They don't feel its essence, and so they don't feel their own. This lack of presence is mirrored in our culture. Much of modern art has lost its soul, not because art is dead, but because many of its creators are still trapped in the mind. They have never tasted the place from which true creativity arises. And so, in the absence of presence, the mind creates distortion, not beauty. Just look at our cities, our concrete deserts, reflections of a civilization cut off from its source. Where there is no presence, there is no beauty. Where there is no inner stillness, there is no truth. Yet not all is lost. Within each of us, a spark remains, a quiet echo of the eternal, waiting to be remembered. Just one true pause, one moment of surrender, can reconnect you to that source. And then, even within the artificial, the real may begin to bloom again. Awareness awakens, and beauty returns. To live with this depth of awareness is to see, not with the eyes, but with presence itself. It is to recognize the sacred in the simple, the timeless within the fleeting. This is not reserved for the mystic or the monk. It is available to all who pause and truly attend. Your surroundings may remain the same, but your perception changes everything. In presence, you don't wait for beauty. You see it. You become it. What happens when consciousness becomes aware of itself? The spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle calls this presence. Not something added to being, but being itself, recognizing itself. A pure moment, free of thought, where life witnesses its own reflection in the stillness. There is no need to grasp it with the mind. One simply has to be. The mind, limited by words and concepts, cannot contain the uncontainable. Presence cannot be understood. It can only be realized. When one is present, one has already arrived, even if the mind hasn't noticed. From the perspective of the world, it may seem as if consciousness is evolving, as if even God, the origin, is unfolding its own perfection through time. But this is only an illusion, born of our fragmented perception of form. In eternity, where being resides, there is no beginning and no end. Everything is contained within a single sacred instant. Yet, in the realm of form, consciousness appears to pass through stages, hidden, revealed, remembered. Everything that exists is an expression of this consciousness. Even a stone carries a rudimentary spark of being. Without that spark, it would dissolve. Life, in all its forms, from the simplest to the most complex, is a sacred play of consciousness with itself. The ancient sages of India saw this clearly. They called it Lila, the divine play, a dance of forms, of births and dissolutions. Like waves on the ocean, the forms rise and fall, but the essence remains unchanged. Suffering arises when this truth is forgotten. When consciousness fully identifies with form, the fear of losing it is born. The body, the ego, the personal story become a prison. The separate self fears its own disappearance because it has forgotten that it is merely a fleeting expression of the eternal. This disconnection breeds dysfunction, and dysfunction brings pain. But pain is not a mistake. It is a catalyst for awakening. Like the prodigal son in Jesus' parable, consciousness returns not to a place but to itself, enriched by its journey. The return is not back to the starting point, but to a deeper level. Unconscious perfection becomes conscious perfection. It is a journey through fall and redemption. Presence arises when one becomes the observer of the mind, when identification with thought is released, and awareness steps back into stillness. Each time the mind is observed, consciousness reclaims a little more of itself from its own illusions. What seems like a simple personal act is, in truth, an event of cosmic significance. Through each human who awakens, consciousness remembers itself. This individual process is part of something greater, a potential collective awakening. What some traditions have called the end of the world is not the collapse of external reality, but the dissolution of egoic consciousness. The world, as seen through the conditioned mind, will fade, making room for perception anchored in being. Yet this awakening is not guaranteed. Many remain caught in the egoic mode, reacting, thinking compulsively, suffering. If they do not awaken in time, the ego they've created may lead them to self-destruction. Increasing confusion, conflict, illness, violence, and madness are all signs of a mind stretched beyond its limits. In its desperation, humanity turns to distraction. Drugs, alcohol, entertainment, information overload, all to silence a mind that won't stop talking. But these are only delays. They don't transform. They don't liberate. There is only one true way forward. Not a return to a primitive pre-mental state, but an evolution to a higher one, where thought becomes a tool, not a master. If humanity fails to make this leap, consciousness will simply express itself elsewhere. The universe is vast. Even if this civilization collapses, what is essential will remain. Consciousness, like water, always finds a new path. Yet the very fact that you are reading or hearing these words is already a sign. It is not random. It is consciousness recognizing itself. There is no teacher or student, only a movement between silence and language, between speaker and listener, who, in essence, are one. The words themselves are not important. They are like fingers pointing to the moon. Do not confuse the finger for the moon. What matters is the presence behind them, the living energy that carries them. Listen also to the silence between phrases. That pause, that formless space, speaks louder than any idea. Only inner stillness can perceive outer stillness. In that union, recognition occurs. What is stillness if not consciousness free from form? There, in that nameless, timeless space, lies the realization, not as achievement, but as a return, as the remembrance of something that never left. And yet, even in the midst of noise, chaos, and apparent disconnection, the call to awaken continues. It is not heard with the ears, but with the soul. A quiet whisper, always present, guiding inward, toward the root of being. The simple act of pausing, of breathing with awareness, can open the door to that dimension. Consciousness does not require elaborate rituals or special conditions. only openness, only willingness. In any moment, even in the middle of a busy street, you can return to the now. Because the present is not found in your surroundings, but in the attention you offer it. When the mind stops chasing form and concept, one discovers there is nothing to reach, because one already is. And that is everything. The search ends, and with it, suffering dissolves. Humanity stands at the crossroads of self-destruction or awakening. But every individual who awakens shifts the balance. This new consciousness won't arrive as a grand spectacle. It will come quietly, like spring, unannounced. And it begins with one, with the choice to be present, to look with new eyes, to listen beyond sound, to inhabit the moment with one's entire being. There, in the deepest part of awareness, the true revolution begins, not one of struggle, but of surrender, not a conquest of the world, but a transcendence of it. Yet even knowing this, the path is rarely linear. Moments of clarity often alternate with moments of confusion. Awakening is not a destination. It is a process, a gradual unfolding. One might touch presence and then forget. This forgetting is not failure. It is part of the journey. Like the tide that comes and goes, presence ebbs and flows, but it is always available. It is not somewhere to get to. It is where you are. Each reminder, each glimpse, is a seed planted in awareness. With sincerity and patience, that seed begins to grow. Even your struggles become part of your awakening. Each reaction noticed, each unconscious pattern seen, becomes a doorway to deeper stillness. Nothing is wasted. And in this unfolding, humility plays a central role. To walk this path is not to become someone special. It is to shed all false identities and return to what has always been quietly waiting within. Presence is not a performance. It is not measured by spiritual achievements or mystical experiences. It is found in the simple act of being fully and openly, in the breath, in the pause, in the willingness to feel without resistance. In this place, even the ordinary becomes sacred. A leaf on the pavement, a whisper of wind, the light in someone's eyes. Here, the realization deepens. You were never separate. You were always home. If a word like Christ doesn't resonate with you, replace it. Call it presence instead, because that is what it truly represents, the divine essence within you. What in the East is known as the self, Eckhart Tolle describes as that formless dimension of your being that already is, timeless and complete. Christ, understood in this way, is not an external figure or a historical character. It is the divine awakened within you. While Christ might refer to the unconscious divinity still dormant, presence is that same light fully awakened within. Many misunderstandings vanish when we realize that Christ has no past or future. To say Christ was or Christ will be is to miss the essence of what is eternal. Jesus, the man, lived in time, but when he said, "Before Abraham was, I am," he was not speaking from the perspective of history, but from eternity. In that simple I am, time is interrupted. Consciousness emerges, unbound by past or future. Jesus wasn't offering concepts. He was transmitting presence. He became a vessel for the timeless, a channel for pure awareness. In the same spirit, God in the Bible defines himself with the words, "I am that I am." There is no time in that declaration. Only now. Only being. The so-called second coming of Christ is not an event to come. It is an inner transformation, a shift from thought to awareness, from time to presence. If that divine energy were to appear before you now, It would not speak of the future. It would say, I am life, I am in you. I am here, I am now. Do not turn Christ into a person. Do not confine that essence to a figure or a form. Those who have truly embodied this consciousness do not consider themselves special. With no ego to defend, they are simpler, more transparent than the average person. True presence does not announce itself. It is often overlooked by those still caught in the mind. The ego seeks greatness, admiration, power. Presence seeks nothing. It simply is. If you feel drawn to a true teacher, it is because that same presence already stirs within you, like recognizes like. And while many fail to recognize Jesus or the Buddha, just as many are still drawn to false teachers, drawn by the ego disguised as truth. Use the presence of a teacher as a mirror, not as a source. That light is within you too. Working in groups can help amplify this awareness. A circle of people rooted in presence generates a field of energy capable of lifting the consciousness of the group and even the wider collective. But even this group work has limits. If there is not at least one individual able to maintain the frequency of now, the mind can easily return and disrupt the field. So while groups can be helpful, do not rely on them. Nor should you depend on the teacher beyond the early stages of learning. The true guide lives within you. It is the presence you are. In the end, everything points inward, toward that living stillness that needs no external validation. That space of presence is your real teacher. Listen to it. Dwell in it. There, all awakening begins and ends. In that sacred space where no effort is needed and no identity clings, a gentle unfolding begins. It is not a destination, but a return, silent and complete. Each moment of presence renews itself without end, like the breath. And in that breath, in that pause, the truth softly whispers, you are already home. Often, one hears talk of having deep inner roots, of inhabiting the body as a gateway to the self. But what does the term self truly mean? The mind seeks to define it, understand it, label it. But the self cannot be confined within concepts. It is like a fish asking, what is water? If the fish had a human mind, that would be its constant question. It cannot see the water because the water is what sustains it, surrounds it, and is itself. In the same way, the self has likely already been felt. There have been moments in which you simply are. But the restless mind attempts to turn that experience into something it can analyze, possess, or explain. It cannot succeed. For in the self, there is no separation between subject and object. Everything is singular consciousness. To feel that I am beyond name, thought, or body is the beginning of liberation. It is the truth that, as Jesus said, sets us free. Free from what? Free from the illusion of being merely form. Free from fear in its many disguises. Free from the suffering that arises when you do not recognize yourself as what you already are. For much of life, human beings identify with their physical form. But that identification is part of the illusion. So how can the body itself lead us to the discovery of the self? The visible body, what you see in the mirror, touch with your hands, is merely a shell, a limited perception. Yet beyond that outer form exists a deeper dimension, the inner body. It is not an idea, but a living experience. Subtle energy, a vital presence vibrating in every cell. To inhabit the body means to turn attention inward, to feel life from within. And in doing so, one realizes something profound, that you are far greater than this transient form. This is only the beginning of a journey into profound stillness, a silence alive with presence. It may start with flashes, brief moments of connection, but in them you sense something vast, that you are not a lone fragment in an indifferent universe, but an expression of a reality that is vast, invisible, indestructible. This reality cannot be taught as a belief. It can only be recognized through your own direct experience, and that requires breaking the spell of constant thought. When the mind consumes all awareness, the inner body is forgotten. Connection with the self is lost, replaced by a mental identity, fragile, anxious, always seeking validation, and from this arises a background of fear. Awakening begins when you become conscious of the mind, when you redirect attention away from thought and toward the body, toward that field of energy that sustains your very existence. There, in silence, the self reveals itself. You need not exert effort to reach this state. You simply need to be present, simply feel. With each conscious breath, with each moment of awareness on the inner body, a door opens. The eternal is not distant or hidden. It is present right here, awaiting your attention to reveal itself as what you have always been. The more frequently you return to this awareness, the stronger it becomes. Over time, this connection to the inner body grounds you in a state of calm and clarity. You begin to move through life with less fear and more grace, no longer seeking wholeness, because you've remembered you already are. Close your eyes if that feels right, not as a ritual, but as an invitation to turn inward. Now, gently bring your attention to the body, not the body you see, but the one you feel. Is there life in your hands, in your legs? Can you sense a subtle vibration in your chest, your abdomen, in every corner of your being? That energy is not imagined. It is presence. It is the doorway. Remain with this perception for a few moments, without labeling it. Don't analyze, just feel. The more attention you offer, the more vivid it becomes. As if each cell begins to awaken, as if your body itself starts to glow from within. Perhaps a luminous image appears. That's fine, but don't cling to it. Images have form, this sensation does not. And what has no form knows no limits. This inner body is unfathomable. You can keep diving in again and again, and there will always be more. If all you feel is a gentle tingling, that too is enough. Pay attention, bear witness. The body begins to come alive, not through movement, but through awareness, through being. This awareness is subtle, but with practice, it grows stronger. It becomes a quiet companion in your daily life, guiding your attention gently back to the present moment. Now, open your eyes. Look around the room, but do not lose touch with that inner energy. Allow both worlds, the inner and the outer, to coexist. The inner body is the threshold, the bridge between form and essence, between who you thought you were and who you truly are. And most importantly, don't forget, never lose that contact. And that concludes our video. If you enjoyed the content as much as we did, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications to stay up to date with all our updates. Thanks for being part of our community. See you in the next video.